All right, think about this for a second. Every single day, we put our trust in experts, surgeons, pilots, you name it. We assume their incredible training makes them pretty much infallible. But what happens when the world they work in gets so unbelievably complex that even the most brilliant people can fail? Well, today we're diving into a powerful idea from surgeon Atul Gawande, who says the solution isn't more training or fancier tech, but something, well, surprisingly simple. So imagine this. You're a doctor, you're in an operating theater to observe a surgery. And all of a sudden, a nurse basically herds you and everyone else into a group. She makes everyone stop, state their name, all while she's just frantically ticking boxes on a clipboard. The source material calls this a totally surreal experience, this weird new ritual they called the WHO huddle. And it was that strange little moment that kicked off a whole investigation into one of the most powerful safety tools ever made. And really, that little story gets right to the heart of the problem that Atul Gawande is talking about. I mean, modern medicine is incredible. It works miracles. But it's also become this insane maze of complexity. We're talking thousands of diseases, procedures, drugs. And here's the kicker. It is now way beyond the ability of any one person, no matter how brilliant they are, to remember and nail every single critical step every single time. And that's where you get what Gawande calls avoidable failures. Now, this is a really crucial distinction. These aren't failures because the doctors don't know what to do. They're not failures of ignorance. They are failures of execution. It's when a key step, often a really simple one, just gets missed in the heat of the moment, under all that pressure. And in medicine, obviously, the stakes are as high as they get. Gawande has this great way of explaining it. He uses an analogy from the world of construction. 100 years ago, you had a master builder who could pretty much know everything it took to put up a building. But try doing that with a modern skyscraper? No way. It takes this incredibly complex dance between dozens of specialized teams. And his point is, medicine has gone on the exact same journey. We've moved from the single, all-knowing doctor to a team of specialists who desperately need a new way to stay on the same page. Okay, so if the problem is that modern work is just too much for one brain to handle, what on earth is the solution? Well, funnily enough, the answer didn't come from medicine. It came from another high-stakes field that had already wrestled with this problem decades earlier, aviation. They came up with a surprisingly low-tech tool to manage their very high-tech world. And the history here is just fascinating. It all started back in 1935. A new prototype of the B-17 bomber, a plane that was literally described as too much for one man to fly, crashed during a test flight. The pilot's solution wasn't more training. It was a simple checklist, just to make sure, as they put it, all the dumb stuff got done. Flash forward a few decades to 2001. A study in ICUs showed a checklist could slash infection rates. And all that history set the stage for 2007, when the WHO decided to try and take this idea global. So look, this is really important to understand. A checklist is not an insult to an expert's intelligence, not at all. It's what you'd call a cognitive safety net. It's a simple, brilliant tool that's just there to protect all of us from the simple fact that our memories aren't perfect and we get distracted, especially when the pressure is really on. So, with all this in mind, Gawande and a team at the World Health Organization set out to answer this massive question. Could a simple one-page checklist actually revolutionize the safety of surgery all over the world? It was time to put the idea to the ultimate test. And believe me, this was no small-time experiment. The team created a 19-point surgical safety checklist, and they trialed it in 8 hospitals around the globe. And just look at this list, from Seattle to Tanzania, London to India. That diversity was absolutely essential. Because if the checklist worked in all of these completely different places, then you knew you really had something special. The team gathered data for months, both before and after the checklist was brought in. And then, in 2009, the results were published in the New England Journal of Medicine, one of the most respected medical journals on the planet. And to say the findings were dramatic, well, that's honestly an understatement. First up, major complications. We're talking about the really bad stuff, like serious infections or other kinds of patient harm. They plummeted by 36%. More than a third of these huge problems just vanished. But that wasn't even the most incredible part. Deaths after surgery dropped by a staggering 47%. Almost half. Let that sink in. This wasn't some new miracle drug or a super expensive robot. It was a simple piece of paper.
It was a communication tool that saved lives on a truly massive scale.
And what about the surgeons themselves? The very experts you might think would feel hemmed in by a checklist. Well, the results were so clear, so undeniable, that 93% of them said they would absolutely want the checklist used on them if they were the ones on the operating table. The proof was just overwhelming. So if these checklists are so unbelievably effective, why is there ever any pushback? And this brings us to the last and maybe the deepest part of this whole story. It really challenges our idea of what it even means to be a hero in our modern world. Gawande just hits the nail on the head here. We have this deep-seated admiration for the daring genius, right? The maverick who breaks the rules and improvises to save the day. And checklists, well, they feel boring. They feel like homework. They just don't fit that romantic story we tell ourselves about what heroism looks like. But let's look at a real-world hero we all know, Captain Sully Sullenberger, the guy who landed a plane on the Hudson River and saved every single person on board. He wasn't just winging it. After the fact, it was clear that he and his co-pilot saved the day by diligently, methodically, and calmly working through their emergency checklists. That was their heroism.
And this really forces us to kind of rethink what a hero looks like. In our complicated world, maybe the real hero isn't the lone wolf improviser anymore. Maybe it's the disciplined professional who values teamwork, communication, and the humble act of just making sure the basics get done right every single time. It's a huge shift from individual daring to collective discipline. And that leaves all of us with a final, pretty challenging question. See, the power of the checklist isn't just for the operating room or the cockpit. We all operate in complex systems, whether it's our jobs, our big projects, or even just managing our family lives. So the question to walk away with is this: what are the simple, vital steps, the dumb stuff, that we might be forgetting to check in our own lives